Talking about The Lord of the Rings back in 2002, Peter Jackson said, "There are certainly themes Tolkien felt were important. We made a promise to ourselves at the beginning of the process that we weren't going to put any of our own politics, our own messages, or our own themes into these movies. What we were trying to do was to analyze what was important to Tolkien and to try to honor that. In a way, we're trying to make these films for him, not for ourselves." Fast forward 20 years, and here's what Lindsay Weber, executive producer of Amazon's Lord of the Rings series, said in Vanity Fair. "It felt only natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like." A new trailer for the upcoming Amazon series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, has dropped, prompting the same grievances, pushback, astonishing surge of downvoting on YouTube, and counter-pushback from lamenting, enlightened, conscious people from the studio and entertainment media. There is a feeling that the upcoming series is going to be visually stunning, but in terms of storytelling and character development, is quite possibly going to suck balls. And not just any balls. We're talking vinegary, grimy, just got back from the gym, heavily chafed and raisin-like wrinkly balls. When it comes to diversity and inclusivity on screen, especially with an epic like this, there is a schism. One perspective is from the showrunners, the wider entertainment industry, and more broadly, modern mainstream progressive culture, who feel that inclusivity and representation supersede certain considerations of setting and an author's original conceptions of his work. In fact, to them, superseding these things is a bracing, enlivening, overdue, and empowering approach that reflects the real world in a way that is fitting and sophisticated. The notion that they might find a little difficult to square is that for the most part, I'm part of that more or less well-educated, more or less liberally minded element of society. What they in the entertainment industry seem to have misread is the fact someone like me can take issue with and even be kind of aggravated by their failure to distinguish between two things. Diversity and inclusivity that's done subtly, with style that's proportionate, and doesn't even necessarily register that much with the audience because they are so enthralled by the quality of screenwriting and character development and adventure on the one hand. And on the other, that inclusivity and diversity can be delivered and presented in ways that are flaky, brazen, presumptuous, and with a disregard for context, canon, the intentions of authors and creators' source material. Such people tend to react by disparagingly writing off the likes of me with suggestions that I'm insecure or triggered. I'm not insecure or triggered. I'm bored. These Hollywood screenwriters, in the case of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, have misjudged their audience, seeming to think that someone like me is a negligible minority, and the vast majority of those expressing their aggravation online as some kind of entertainment or pop culture equivalent of the Proud Boys, whose grievances are somehow ensnared with wider cultural insecurities about masculinity or race, or that their libertarian fantasies and male chauvinistic presumption about society are being eroded, and something like The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power becomes a clumsy focal point for some kind of wider raging against the dying of the light when it comes to patriarchy or privilege or whatever else is ascribed to them. The problem is, it's not just them. It's a broad-based sense of aggravation, as shown by the horrific numbers with which the initial teaser trailer and now this trailer have been ratioed with downvotes on YouTube, and also reflected by the entertainment moguls and PR people suddenly realizing they had to get off their high horse and attempt some clumsy, manufactured, contrived, and cringe-inducing spectacle of damage control involving some of the flakiest people you could imagine, being wheeled out to try and steady what was an embarrassingly difficult launch. That fiasco reflects that in making such an urgent reset, the folks at Amazon must genuinely be concerned that the product that they've made has overstepped the line with an audience that is intelligent, broad-based, articulate, profoundly devoted to source material they've grown up with, and whose grievances are entirely legitimate and perhaps, most scary to the showrunners, mainstream. You see, most people like inclusivity and diversity, but sometimes the picture can be a little bit more complicated. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power hits us with a trailer in which inclusivity and diversity are so disproportionately thrust into your face, you feel like the victim of gluttony in the film Seven, a poor soul who was literally force-fed to his death. When it is so on the nose, done with such a lack of subtlety, done with such an overt projection of progressive ideals, it feels like the entertainment you're watching is imbued with screenwriters' politics and values and aspirations for the culture and society, at least as much as it is with creative spirit. When it is overt like this, it saps the energy, momentum, and goodwill out of the entertainment spectacle. If screenwriters come up with a new franchise, a new universe, shot through with brilliant new ideas, original characters, great new settings, new conceits, or there is a phenomenal genre inventing or reinventing premise, and that is tested in the market, then that is great. But if you take an existing franchise that you had no part in creating, no part in contributing to, no part in developing a loyal, devoted audience over generations full of beloved characters you had no part in crafting, and you use that as a vehicle for your ideas and values and ideology and politics, and then you alter it to fit those precepts, then there's something kind of obnoxious about that, and that obnoxiousness comes through on the screen. It's that failure to distinguish between those two things, bravely and inventively introducing a new fantasy world, as opposed to piggybacking your progress on an existing and beloved one and tweaking it into whatever contorted shape you want, so that it becomes kind of ersatz, which is so aggravating and so glaringly on show in this trailer. Not only that, it's the sheer disproportionality that's also kind of obnoxious, and it expresses the very thing that progressivism has always tried to fight against, which is a sense of entitlement. The showrunners in this industry are expressing a sense of entitlement to express their values and ideals, whether proportionate or not. This trailer, as many people have commented, is visually stunning, but The Rise of Skywalker was also visually stunning, and The Matrix was also visually stunning. But they sucked as films because the writing and character work was lame. My feeling is The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power might best be enjoyed with the sound down, or by some Tolkien loyalists out there putting together a supercut of beautifully CGI rendered landscape shots, and then the likes of me just watching that.